What does it mean when someone survives an incurable and fatal illness? Told that they are going to die. The projected time of death comes and goes, and then it turns out that the illness is gone. Medicine calls this a fluke. Is it? Cancer, diabetes, heart disease, asthma, and arthritis afflict 45% of the American population. For the most part, these are lifestyle illnesses. They cause enormous suffering. They account for 2/3 of all deaths and 75% of all healthcare spending. Just a modest reduction in healthcare in the change of behaviors would delay or prevent the onset of 40 million cases of chronic illness each year. Do stories from the edge of medicine have anything for us? It's strange that in the history of medicine, cases of spontaneous remission have almost never seen the light of a rigorous science. If you were on the science side or a physician, you call it spontaneous remission or a placebo and shrug your shoulders. If you were on the spiritual side or a theologian, you call it a miracle or spiritual healing. All of these terms are black boxes that have not been unpacked by science. As a member of the faculty at Harvard Medical School and the chief of psychiatry at a medical center and a medical director at a psychiatric hospital, I have been walking around the mind-body problem for many years with both medical and psychiatric patients. I also studied this problem during my Master of Divinity at Princeton Seminary. Since 2003, I have been listening to over 100 people from around the world tell me about their recoveries from incurable illness and looking at the medical evidence. Claire was diagnosed by biopsy in 2008 with the most fatal form of pancreatic cancer, told that she was going to die. 2 to 5% still alive at 5 years. Why did I interview her? Because in 2013, her CT of the abdomen read negative for cancer. Dr. Kane was diagnosed also by biopsy with idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. In this disease, your lungs turn to cardboard and you die. There is no effective treatment. Dr. Kane went on disability and put her affairs in order. But today, her chest CT is clean, and she is back to work as a physician, busier than ever. Now, if these are fatal illnesses, how do these people get better? Is it possible that the mind played a role in their recovery? This could get me in a lot of trouble. But hold on for a minute. When I was in seminary, it wasn't crazy to ask whether the mind can heal the body. Many cultures have a long tradition of this. When I was in seminary and med school, I worked really hard to understand what was true at the very bottom of both religion and science. I struggled with the underlying assumptions of theology, philosophy of science, and modern physics. Take Zen Buddhism, for example. Zen Buddhism says that there's one cause of illness. Illness is disease. Dis-ease, a lack of inner balance and harmony. I later learned that ancient Christianity taught the same thing. After seminary, I went to med school. And for where I was at that point in my life, I really needed factual evidence. Med school was so helpful to me at that time. I needed science. In med school, I learned that disease originates in the body. that every disease has its own discrete pathogenesis and cure. The signs and symptoms of one illness are very different than the signs and symptoms of another, and each has its own treatment, medicines, procedures. I need something external to me to fix me. Years later, as a physician, I can see that this does work much of the time. I prescribe medicines, and people often do get better. The brilliance of Western culture is that when you have a medical problem, you go see a doctor. When you have a psychological problem, you go see a psychotherapist. And when you have a spiritual problem, you go see a priest, rabbi, minister, or sheikh. The brilliance of Western culture lies in its capacity to recognize distinctions and analyze the parts of the larger whole. In the Eastern framework, however, there is no such sharp distinction between the body and the mind. In Eastern medicine, both physical and mental illnesses are treated by rebalancing the body's energetic system. Years later, as I tried to understand what these people with remissions were trying to tell me, I circled back to these ancient theological writings. I was reminded of the teaching that the body is thought to be a metaphor for something that the deeper mind is trying to learn. I began to wonder, are these people able to open a curtain of perception in the deeper mind in some way, and that this then plays a role in their health recovery? This seemed to be what they were trying to tell me in their different ways. Maybe we need to respect the respective strengths of both East and West, the Western capacity to make distinctions and the Eastern capacity to see interconnections. And if we can superimpose these two models, maybe we will see that there are powers and vitality and pathways that we are only beginning to map in the West. This is a huge topic. So, let me just say this. A new day is dawning, and it's a fantastic time that we have ahead of us. Modern physics is coming to medicine, and I believe it's going to change everything. You will need a new mindset to become the CEO of your own health, and you will need to know how to focus on health and not just on the maintenance or prevention of disease. So, if I may, I'd like to ask a science fiction question. Can the mind heal the body? This is a mystery. I do not believe that we can think ourselves into health. Back to Claire with pancreatic cancer. She said she knew at a deep level if she was going to beat the illness, she needed to not chase a cure, but to change her relationship with herself. Dr. Kane, while she was on disability, did a ton of research on how to create a fulfilling life while living with a lethal disease. She said that she never gave up hope. And at some point, she realized that she needed to surrender to a new way of seeing and experiencing herself. What does this mean? It means that we have a lot to learn yet. I've seen a lot. I've seen people who thought they were well, but weren't. I've seen illnesses return when people go back to toxic relationships. But I've also seen people get better and stay better. And these are not flukes or anecdotes. Identifiable principles exist among people, and we should be studying them. If I wanted to understand ultimate performance in sports, I would study Michael Jordan. I do not believe that he would take kindly to being called a fluke or an anecdote. If we want to understand ultimate performance in health, then we should be studying people like Claire and Dr. Kane. What is the takeaway? The takeaway is this. There are powers in your heart and in your mind that no medicine can touch. Those of us in medicine have a responsibility to understand this better. There are aspects to this that at the highest level I can only still speak about as a theologian. Something in us appears to benefit from experiencing that which is perfect, whole, and complete within us. Those who are able to open that curtain of perception say that when they do, there's nothing to judge. People change a lot of things, but what they really want to talk about, the gift of the disease, is that it changed their relationship with themselves. This has incredible significance, it seems to me, for medical and psychiatric patients who suffer. Those who feel seen and cared for, and then who experience enhanced self-esteem, seem to be more interested and also more able to give up the unhealthy behaviors that cause them to suffer and that contribute to our lifestyle illnesses. It's a form of cleanup almost, because now something higher is in place. So what does this mean for you? What would it take for you to not take care of others to the exclusion of following your own deepest wishes and longings and dreams? What would it take for you to honor the dignity of your life? I do know that ethical, grounded hope with evidence is very different than false hope. This is what I believe. Number one, there's nothing spontaneous about spontaneous remission. Every person I have spoken with has effected a deep change of perception of themselves and the world, whether that took 10 minutes or 10 years. Number two, the interface of the body, mind, and the soul may well be the most profound mystery of our time. Perhaps someday we will have the privilege of uncovering this elusive relationship. Until then, I remain inspired by stories with evidence. They give me hope. They prompt me to ask what barriers I can overcome within me. Number three, stories with evidence need a platform, because these stories inspire people, and people who are inspired overcome barriers and then inspire others. As we create pathways of health and vitality, others will find and create their own pathways. In conclusion, let's create a science of health and not just a science of disease. We become what we focus on. So focus on creating a life of value and purpose and vitality, built on what is right and great about you, so that you won't suffer and so that you won't need the unhealthy behavior. This would essentially be a medicine of hope and possibility, a form of positive medicine. If we can do this, if we can provide grounded ethical hope to those who suffer, and if we can create pathways that help you experience what is right and whole and complete within you, then perhaps one day we will be able to say we have recreated fire. Thank you.